Hi, I'm Dahlia. The last time my family changed the locks, they didn't just shut a door. They erased my name from the walls. It started with something small, a room I thought was mine, then a photo that disappeared from the shelf. The worst part? No one said a word. So how does a child become a ghost in their own home? And what happens when that ghost inherits everything? Before we dive in, have you ever been treated like an outsider in your own family? Let me know in the comments. It always surprises me how memory picks its own timing. You can go years thinking you've buried something, and then, out of nowhere, your phone buzzes and there it is. Uninvited, unforgotten. This time, it was a group text from my mother. Or more accurately, a group I used to be in. I wasn't part of it anymore, but the preview still lit up. Silas needs... I didn't finish reading. My stomach had already curled, tight and familiar. I locked my phone and stared out the kitchen window, where the morning light tried hard to feel soft. I knew exactly what my body was remembering. That day, the day the walls shifted, and I stopped being part of what we called home. I was 12. It was early spring in Olympia, and my mother had just come back from a doctor's appointment. Her face looked stretched, like she was trying to hold back both joy and guilt in equal parts. She sat me down in the living room and said we had to make space for the new baby. Not just in our hearts, but in the house. That's what she said. Make space. Before I could ask what that meant, Malcolm walked in holding a tape measure and pointed toward my room. It's the biggest. Silas will need it. You'll move to the back room. He said it like it was a done deal, like I was a temporary guest being reassigned. My mom stood behind him, eyes on the floor, not once meeting mine. I packed in silence. No one helped. I remember wrapping my school books in the same sweater I wore the day my dad left for good. I remember clinging to the edge of my bedpost, pressing my forehead against it as if it could hold me longer. The back room wasn't a room. It was a converted storage space with a single flickering light and no windows. My clothes didn't fit in the plastic drawers they gave me. My bookshelf turned into a cardboard box. My posters peeled because the walls sweated in summer. I tried to make it mine. I put up a string of battery lights and taped my class picture to the corner. I told myself it was just a room. A room can't define you. But when it's given like charity and taken like punishment, it does more than define. It erases. Weeks passed. One afternoon, I walked through the living room and noticed the family photo shelf looked different. Malcolm, Lorna, Avery, and an ultrasound picture of the baby. But something was missing. My school photo. "Where's my picture?" I asked, trying to sound curious instead of cracked. Lorna didn't look up from folding laundry. "Oh, it probably fell. I'll check later." Malcolm didn't even flinch from the TV. I didn't check later. I already knew. That night, I lay in my new bed that creaked every time I turned. I traced the ceiling with my eyes, counted the water spots, tried to fall asleep before the bulb started buzzing. I whispered to myself, I wasn't just moved, I was reclassified, from daughter to leftover. I think that's when I started to float, not leave, just float, above everything. Birthday songs, Sunday dinners, even the baby's first word. I floated above all of it because I wasn't part of it. I was the margin note that got erased before the teacher collected the essay. Now, sitting in my apartment in Seattle, I catch myself rubbing the faint scar on my palm. I got it from dragging a broken box of books that day. Cold still makes it sting, just like that memory. I whisper into my coffee steam. I didn't know it then, but that was the day they rewrote our family story, and they started by erasing me. My phone buzzes again. This time the screen lights up with a name I haven't seen in years. Mom. My phone buzzed around 7:42 a.m., the screen lighting up with a quiet reminder. Silas's birthday today. I stared at it for a moment too long, the kind of pause where something shifts and sinks inside your chest. I hadn't seen him in over a year, but my calendar still remembered. Meanwhile, no one in that house ever remembered mine, not even by accident. My birthday is exactly 1 week after Silas's. Every year, it arrived like a footnote, and one year, it didn't arrive at all. I was 13. The house smelled like buttercream and balloons. There were loud voices, kids running with frosting on their faces, adults holding plastic cups filled with laughter. Silas was turning 1. It was his first birthday. Everyone came. They called him our little miracle. I was in the kitchen helping refill napkins when I heard my mother talking to a neighbor. Yes, he's our youngest. I wasn't even surprised. Later that evening, after the cake had been sliced and the presents unwrapped, I stood next to her by the sink and asked quietly, "Are we doing anything next week?" She didn't look up. "We just did Silas's party. You're old enough not to need one." I nodded. Of course, I should have known. That night, after they'd all gone to bed, I tiptoed into the kitchen. I made myself a cupcake out of pancake mix and chocolate chips. I stuck a tea candle in the center and lit it with a match I'd hidden from the junk drawer. I sat on the floor, sang softly to myself, and blew it out. I didn't make a wish. A week later, the phone rang. Grandma. She asked if I liked the birthday money she mailed. "What money?" I asked. She sounded confused. "The 100 I sent you. I mailed it last Monday. Lorna said Avery would hand it to you." My chest turned cold. I found Avery in the den, playing video games, feet up like nothing mattered. "Did you get something in the mail for me last week?" I asked. He grinned without looking up. "You're just mad no one wanted to give you anything." Malcolm walked by and overheard. "Don't start drama over a few bucks," he muttered, disappearing into the hallway. My mother was in the kitchen again, drying dishes. She didn't turn around. It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about knowing, deep in my marrow, that I didn't even matter enough to lie to. No one forgot me. They remembered to exclude me. That night, I started writing a journal entry titled, "How to Disappear Quietly." But halfway through the first paragraph, I crumpled the page. What's the point of documenting absence? Now at 32, I open my fridge and stare at the empty door. No magnets, no cards. Just a sticky note reminding me to buy oat milk. I walk to the corner cafe and buy myself a latte with double vanilla. I take a sip and mutter under my breath, "Happy birthday to me." No candle, no song, just warm sweetness and silence. When I get home, I pull out my old storage box, the one labeled Keep. I rifle through layers of old notebooks and see a folded card tucked between two books. No name, no envelope, no signature. I hold it for a moment, then smile without warmth. Even my memories come with no names attached. The folder was labeled Maybe One Day. I found it while digging through a drawer I hadn't opened in years, looking for something entirely different. It was thin, just one sheet inside, crisp despite its age. A rejection letter from a college I barely let myself dream about. My fingers hesitated at the edges. I should have tossed it, but I didn't. I read it, line by line, and remembered exactly why I left Olympia. I didn't just leave home. I left the version of me they wanted to keep small. Back then, I still believed I could build a life out of ideas and drawings. It was the fall of my senior year, and I had one shot left at a scholarship to a state university with a decent design program. I'd spent weeks sketching every night after school, eating cereal straight from the box because I didn't want to dirty a dish. The living room had the only stable light in the house. I worked on the floor near the old radiator, taping my pieces together, one concept flowing into the next. Then Avery stumbled in with his friends, laughing, shouting, already drunk. I asked them, politely, to go somewhere else. I said, "I just need a few more hours, please." One of them knocked over a soda, or maybe it was beer. It soaked straight through my top layout sheet. The marker bled like it was bleeding for me. I picked up the wet paper, and for a second, I couldn't move. Then I ran to my mom, holding the ruined sheet with shaking hands. She didn't even look up. "You shouldn't have been working in the middle of the living room anyway." That night, I tried drawing what I could. Some pages curled in the heater's breeze. Others were lost completely. The next morning, I told her I'd salvaged enough to still submit. That maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late. She sighed like I was being difficult. "Do you really think you'll survive far from us? Just apply somewhere nearby. You're not built for big cities." I didn't argue. I just nodded, walked upstairs, and closed the door behind me. Then I ripped the scholarship application form in half. Quietly. That's the thing. I wasn't built at all. I was trimmed down to fit them. After that, I started saving. Tips from my part-time job at the diner went into a shoebox. I stopped buying lunch at school. When I got hungry, I drank water. If someone gave me $1 for anything, I folded it, tucked it away. One day I would need bus fare. One day I would need to disappear. The truth is, I didn't run away. I built a raft, one receipt at a time. College stopped being a destination. It became an exit strategy. That dream didn't survive. But the will to leave? That grew sharper than ever. Now, at 32, I hold the rejection letter like a fossil. I don't feel sad, just validated. I fold it and tuck it into a new folder I've labeled, Things I Survived. As I close the drawer, a page falls loose onto the floor. I pick it up. It's one of my old sketches. Not a brilliant one, a simple line drawing of a bench under a tree, but it's the only one that made it through that night. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My laptop dings. I glance at the screen. An email subject reads, Regarding your submission, the Marlowe Gallery. I click it open. The curator says they found my piece. Compelling. Maybe the dream didn't survive, but it waited. The memory showed up without warning, just a blue notification banner across the top of my phone screen. On this day, 10 years ago, a Facebook photo I didn't remember being taken, mostly because I wasn't there to be in it. It was from their Oregon trip. The road trip I never heard about until long after they came back, sun-kissed and full of stories I hadn't been invited to live. There's something cruel about the world reminding you of things it never gave you. Like it's not enough that they forgot. You have to remember it for them. I was 17, and the house was silent when I got home. No music, no laughter, no sounds of Silas throwing Legos across the hallway. Just a note on the fridge in my mother's cursive. Road trip to Oregon, be back Monday, left food in the fridge. They hadn't mentioned a word. Not a, we're planning something. Not a, want to come? Nothing. I opened the fridge, found a half-eaten casserole and a single can of chicken noodle soup. I warmed the soup, sat at the table by myself, and listened to the hum of the empty house. I remember thinking how loud nothing can be when it fills a space that was never yours to begin with. I spent that weekend alone, did laundry, cleaned the kitchen, watched the weather report just to hear someone talk. I tried calling Lorna once, just to say hi. It went straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Months later, a box arrived in the mail. It was Lorna's summer project, a printed family album she'd made online. I was surprised she sent me a copy. I shouldn't have been. The cover said, Our Year in Smiles. I flipped through it slowly. Pages of posed moments, Silas on a swing, Avery holding sparklers, Malcolm grilling, Lorna under a waterfall with her hands in the air. A perfect, unbroken quartet. Then a page caught my eye. A wide-angle shot at Crater Lake, everyone wearing matching flannel. Underneath, in the caption, it read, Our two boys at Crater Lake. I felt something press against my chest. Not sadness, not even anger. Just the slow recognition that I wasn't part of the sentence. I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Did you mean to write two boys? There was a pause. Then she said, It just flowed better that way. That sentence did more damage than any scream could have. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept what little was left from my childhood. Report cards, ribbons, a baby photo with crayon on the corner. I put the photo back in the envelope. I didn't cry. I just labeled it, no longer needed. I started to wonder if maybe my name had become too long, too sharp, too heavy to fit into their idea of who belonged. Names carry weight, and mine had been lifted quietly from every shelf, every frame, every caption. Now in my apartment, I close Facebook and click Turn Off Memories. I open a folder on my laptop instead. Inside are scanned sketches, photos I've taken, journal pages. Only one folder is labeled, Proof I Was Here. That's enough for now. I hear a ping. Avery has posted something. I click without thinking. It's a photo of him, Malcolm, Lorna, and Silas in front of their fireplace. The caption reads, The family that stays together. I stare at the screen. My name isn't tagged, again. I found it while digging through a storage box I had been meaning to toss. Tucked behind old-school notebooks and a cracked snow globe from 5th grade, there it was, my high school graduation photo. I was smiling. The kind of smile you practice in a mirror. One that hides just enough and shows only what's expected. I could tell it wasn't real, even back then, But I still smiled for the camera. Because that's what you do when you're playing a part. It was the day of my graduation ceremony. My classmates were buzzing backstage, adjusting caps, hugging their parents, shouting about college plans. I was fixing my sash when Lorna leaned in and whispered, "Remember to call him Dad when you give your thank you." My breath caught. "Do I have to?" I asked, barely audible. She just stared at me. "Don't make this about you." Malcolm stood nearby, straightening his tie like he was about to give a boardroom speech. He looked at me once, didn't nod, didn't smile, just waited. When they called my name, I walked across the stage with shaky knees. At the podium, I looked out into the crowd and saw their faces. Malcolm, arms folded. Lorna, camera up. Avery, yawning. I said it. "Thank you to my dad for supporting me." The word scratched its way out of my throat. My classmates clapped. The principal smiled. I felt something inside me fold in half. A few days later, there was a neighborhood barbecue. The kind where people bring plastic tubs of potato salad and cheap soda in coolers. I didn't want to go, but Lorna said I should show face. So I went. I was standing by the grill when a neighbor turned to Malcolm and said, "You must be so proud of your daughter." He laughed. Not just a chuckle, a full, careless laugh. "Oh no, just my boy Avery. That one's not mine." I was 5 feet away. He didn't even lower his voice. The woman looked between us, unsure whether to say anything. No one did. I stayed for another 10 minutes before slipping out the side gate. That night, I sat on my bed and watched a video of my graduation speech on my phone. My hand holding the mic, the forced grin, the pause before the word, Dad. I saw it all. That was the moment I realized I'd never been in their story. I was just a prop. Something you place in the scene so it looks full. But the lines, the plot, I was never written in. I printed the graduation photo the next day, cut it in half with a pair of scissors from the kitchen drawer. On the back of my half I wrote, "This was the last time I lied out loud." I slipped it into an envelope and labeled it, "One day you'll understand." Back in the present, as I sorted through my inbox, a new notification appeared on my screen. Friend request. From Malcolm. No message, just the request. The subject line said it all. Estate revision notice. No surprises, just confirmation. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit in my inbox, bold and unread, like a bruise I wasn't ready to press. But I already knew. You can always tell when something isn't for you, especially when it has your name on it and still feels like it belongs to someone else. There are wounds words leave, but paperwork signs the scar into permanence. It was early evening when the call came. I had one hand in a pot of soil, trying to revive a dying fern, when my phone lit up. Lorna. I answered without thinking. Her voice was unusually upbeat, like she was testing out a new tone. She asked how I'd been, whether Seattle had warmed up, if I was still writing those creative pieces. Small talk like someone who wanted something but didn't know how to ask for it yet. Then came the drop. Malcolm updated the will. Avery and Silas are included. You're not. He said it's only logical, since they're his sons. There was a pause, a silence that hummed like static in my ear. Okay, I said. It was the first time I didn't cry. I wasn't shocked. I was confirmed. A week later, I was invited to dinner. She called it a catch-up. I knew better. When I arrived, the table was already set. Silverware placed precisely. Napkins folded like fans. It looked more like a formality than a meal. We went through the motions. Salad, bread rolls, Malcolm talking about the leak in the garage like the world wasn't shifting beneath my feet. Then, after dessert, he pulled out a folder. I thought it would be best to be transparent, he said, unfastening the clasp. He read aloud, slowly, carefully, emphasizing my sons like it was a title they earned. My name wasn't mentioned once, not even in passing. Lorna brought out a pie. Peach, my favorite. She placed a slice in front of me like that would soften the blow. I didn't touch it. I stared at the line where my name should have been. It was more than omission. It was ritual. This wasn't just paperwork. It was burial. That night I packed early and left before anyone could pretend to care. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a note. I just drove home, let myself into my apartment, and sat on the edge of my bed until the sun started to rise. I'm not part of your legacy, I whispered into the quiet, but I will never be part of your silence again. The next morning, I emailed my landlord to renew my lease. It wasn't just logistics. It was declaration. I was staying, not just in Seattle, but in the life I was building without them. Later that week, I began drafting my own will. Not because I had much, but because I had clarity, and in it, I added one line. To be seen and named is a right. To be erased is a choice I will never make for others. As I clicked save, my phone buzzed again. A new email. This time, not from my family. It was from a law office in Spokane. Subject line, regarding the estate of Eleanor Rake. It came in a white envelope, thicker than usual, the kind that usually means bills or legal trouble. I almost tossed it in the recycling bin, assuming it was another scam or misaddressed notice. But the return address made me pause. Spokane, law offices of Harold and Lenz. And then the name that stopped my breath. Eleanor Rake. I barely remembered her. A whisper in family lore. A woman my father once called too odd to marry, and my mother called a woman who made her own messes. She was a blurry presence at 2 holidays, a faded signature on a card once sent when I had the flu. That was it. That was all. But apparently she never forgot me. Inside was a letter, legal, cold in tone, but somehow warmer than anything I'd gotten from the people who raised me. Eleanor Rake had passed away, and in her final will she had named me, the barely acknowledged daughter of a man who left too early, as the sole beneficiary of her estate. 2 homes, a trust valued at $2.8 million, and a short note from her attorney. She said you reminded her of herself, independent, overlooked, resilient. I didn't move for a long time. After all these years, I didn't just inherit money. I inherited proof that someone saw me. A second envelope slid from the packet. Small, aged, sealed with a red sticker I recognized from years ago. Inside was a photograph. I was maybe 6, standing in a corner at a family cookout. Everyone else had arms wrapped around each other. I had a paper cup, and I was staring, not at the camera, but at the people I thought I was supposed to belong to. On the back of the photo, in firm cursive, Eleanor had written, "You were the only one not being held. I never forgot that." I closed my eyes and let the picture rest against my chest. The memory came back in colors I didn't want. Green grass, red plates, the smell of grilled hot dogs, my itchy dress. But mostly I remembered the way no one noticed I was holding my own hand. This wasn't just recognition. This was witness. Someone had seen it. And more than that, they remembered it. Later that day, I walked to the small park near my apartment and sat on the same bench I always avoided. The one with the backrest that leaned too far, but had the best view of the water. I read her letter 3 times, and on the 4th, I didn't cry. I just breathed. All my life I thought I wanted to be accepted. Turns out, I just wanted to be seen. And now I had a name. On a will, on a title deed, on a sentence that didn't erase me. I whispered into the wind, I'll protect this. Not just the money, the meaning. When I got home, I updated my emergency contact to none. I deleted Malcolm's number. I started a new document on my laptop titled, What I Will Leave Behind. Sometimes it takes a stranger to tell you your name still matters. That night my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was Lorna, holding a tote bag, smiling like we were about to bake cookies. When I opened the door, I already knew. Lorna stood there, gripping a canvas tote bag like it was filled with answers. Her smile stretched too far, like it was stitched on. She smelled faintly of vanilla and old perfume, the kind she only wore when she wanted something. She didn't come to apologize. She came to collect. We sat in my kitchen, the one I painted soft gray with my own hands. She commented on how cozy it was, how Seattle had softened me. I didn't respond. The silence was mine now, and I'd grown skilled at using it. Then she said it, casually, like she was asking for sugar. We think 1 million is fair. I blinked. Not because I didn't hear her, but because I needed to make sure I wasn't hallucinating the arrogance. 1 million, she repeated. With Malcolm's health and Silas's tuition, it's been a strain. I stirred my tea. It's not just money, she added, leaning in. It's legacy. And it belongs to us. I set my spoon down. No, I said. No heat, no drama. Just the word, whole and unmoved. She blinked like I'd slapped her. After everything, they still thought I owed them for never being theirs. A few days later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. Cream-colored, thick, unmarked except for my name. Well, almost my name. Dahlia Wiener. I opened it to find a fake legal notice, demanding that I equitably share the inherited estate in accordance with familial expectations. The letterhead was generic. The return address led to a P.O. box I recognized as one Lorna once used for seasonal catalogs. I forwarded it to my lawyer. He replied with one sentence. This is not enforceable, and frankly, it's embarrassing. Even when they tried to steal what wasn't theirs, they couldn't get my name right. That same afternoon, Lorna called. No hello, no preamble. You're not even family, she shouted. The money isn't yours. I didn't yell back. I just let the silence stretch until it turned solid. Then I said, You just proved it again. We haven't spoken since. That night, I posted a photo of the inheritance letter on my private account. No filters, no tags. Just the caption, Not for revenge, for repair. The messages came fast. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Aunts, people who once forgot my birthday. All suddenly remembering I existed. I answered none of them. They could scream all they wanted. I didn't need to shout. I had receipts. Then, a message. Just one line, from Silas. Are you okay? I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I typed, I'm fine. You? Then I deleted it. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed a little longer. The apartment was still in the way that only follows chaos. Sunlight slid across the hardwood floors, warming the old coffee table and the half-finished mug that had gone cold beside it. I sat up slowly, listening to nothing. No knocks, no demands, no drama. The fighting stopped, but echoes don't go away just because voices do. I hadn't heard from them since the last call, the one where Lorna's voice cracked into accusation, where my silence finally became an answer. She hung up before I could. Or maybe I did. I honestly don't remember who ended it. What I do remember is all the things I could have said. I could have screamed, could have told her about every night I spent trying to be less so she would offer me more. I could have dragged out every slight, every erased photo, every forgotten birthday and twisted omission. But I didn't. Because silence was the only language they ever taught me. I just learned how to speak it fluently. In the days after, I started gathering pieces of my past, like someone preparing an archive no one else would ever see. A torn graduation photo, the rejection letter, a dried flower Eleanor once pressed into the margin of her last letter. I placed them all in a box labeled Truths I Don't Owe Anyone. And then I wrote one more letter, addressed to whoever I used to try to be. I didn't fill the whole page, just a few lines. You tried so hard, but you don't have to anymore. I sealed it and tucked it in beside the others. No stamps, no senders, just peace. Later that week, I sent one actual letter to my attorney. I will not contest. I will not share. Please close the matter entirely. I didn't need a court ruling to validate what Eleanor had already given me. Then a small envelope arrived in the mail. My name was spelled right this time. In block letters, a little shaky. Silas's handwriting. Inside was a card folded in half. No decoration, no stickers, no flourish. Just 3 words. I miss you. Nothing more. No ask, no apology, no timeline. I placed it on my fridge next to a sticky note I'd scribbled the day I got Eleanor's letter. Be who saw you first. I didn't reply, but I didn't throw it away either. That weekend I drove past the house in Olympia. The siding was freshly painted. Malcolm's truck was in the driveway. Someone had planted flowers along the porch. It looked lived in, stable, familiar in all the ways it never was when I needed it to be. I parked across the street and just sat there, engine humming, hands in my lap. No one knew I was there, and I didn't want them to. I didn't get out. I didn't knock. I wasn't angry anymore, but I was still not going back. I rolled down the window and let the cold air brush my face. I never imagined freedom would feel this quiet. Maybe that's the quiet we never talk about. The one that comes not from isolation, but from finally walking away from a room you were never welcomed in. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't have to fight to belong where love is real. You don't need to prove your worth to people who only see your presence as optional. Being chosen once, by someone who saw you without obligation, can be more healing than a lifetime of forced ties. So if you're watching this, and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, please know, being forgotten does not mean you are forgettable. Have you ever had to walk away from a place, or people, you once called home? What helped you finally choose yourself? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if this video touched something inside you, drop a 1 inch in the comments, or let me know where you're watching from. If not, tell me why. It matters. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that speak to the quiet parts of our hearts. You never know when one will remind you that you're not alone.